Hello, crafty friends, and welcome back to my channel. Wishing you all a very happy new year. Let's begin 2025 by spreading some happy sunshine to all you lovely people. Well, being close to nature has always given me so much happiness, so I thought why not share this with you guys by creating a beautiful mountains and foresty scene and sending you all some sunshine at the start of this very happy new year. Before we get started, I would really like to thank each and every one of you for being here today and supporting my channel. If you're new to my channel, thanks for being here. My name is Revati and I create quick and simple card making tutorials here on my channel. I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Now let us get started and take a look at the very first card that I created for 2025. I will be creating a quick and simple yet colorful background using the layered mountains and tree-line stencils by CADETTE. Now this is a 6 by 6 inch stencil which has 3 layers to create stunning layered mountain scene and along with a beautiful tree-line detail. Now this would be perfect for nature inspired or any adventure themed projects. The layering on these stencils allow you to add dimension and perspective to your background. I will be ink blending using these stencils, which not only create the tree line but also have masks to create multiple layers of those tree lines. You could add some fun stamped focal point image to complete your scene. Now, since there's a lot of masking and ink blending, I want to make sure that my panel does not move or shift around. For that, I will use the sticky mat, which will not only hold my panel in place, but is also perfect to hold my stencil, making sure that the ink does not bleed into areas where I don't need it to. I positioned my white A2 size panel onto the center of the sticky mat and then layered the first tree line stencil towards the bottom half of this panel. This will be the first tree line layer for which I used the darkest green that I had in my stash. Once I was done ink blending, I carefully removed the stencil. On the other side of the panel is the mask of this layer. I carefully layered this onto the tree line, making sure that I have covered all of that blended area. And then I added the second layer of the tree line right above it. Then, using the lighter shade of green, I blended onto the second layer. Well, now since the first layer had a darker green, you could avoid the mask and directly blend over it. It would not have had a lot of effect or change in color. I feel that using the combination of a light and dark green gives some dimension and depth to these tree lines. Now, once I'm done ink blending the lighter green, I will remove both of the stencils and using either one of those tree lines, you could fill in the gaps between those tree lines. All I wanted to do is make sure that there's no white space between them. If you see any of those white spaces, you could just bring your blending brush and light-handedly blend around those areas with all that leftover green on the brush. You don't need to dip your ink blending brush again into the ink pad. If you want to create more tree lines above this, just make sure that you use lighter shades of green or just use the leftover ink on the blending brush. Next, we will create the mountain layer for our background scene. Now, since I will be using the browns for my mountain, I will definitely mask to cover those tree lines. Well, since I ink blended a couple of trees over the last layer, I will not have a perfect mask here. So instead of masking the tree line, I will ink it very carefully, making sure that the brown on the mountains does not mix with the green on my tree lines. I used two shades of browns for my mountains. I pulled down the lighter shade towards the tree lines and used the darker brown just towards the edges of the mountain. Once I was satisfied with the ink blending on the mountain, I will take out the stencil and place the mask over it. This will help us with ink blending blue on our sky. Now note that the blue is a very lighter shade as compared to the heavy-handed brown that we used on the mountain. So it's important not to get these colors mixed. Initially, I thought that I would just add the blue sky, but it was not until later into this project that I thought of adding the sub-sentiment which says sending sunshine. So to match the sentiment, I decided to add the sun behind my mountain. I used yellow for the sun and carefully blended the blue on my sky, making sure that the blue does not bleed into the yellow sun. I can now pull out this mask, and before we go into the next step, I will make sure that I'm satisfied with all of that ink blending on my tree lines, the mountains, the blue sky, and the sun behind the mountains. Well, as I peel the stencil, I realize that there's a slight white marking left between the sky and the mountain. Well, this definitely is an imperfection, but let's just see this as a snow peak mountain. Well, you could leave the panel as is, but if you know me, you know how much I love my sparkle. I took out my splat box and placed the panel into this box and sprayed some silver shimmer mist all over the panel. Now, while this panel dries, we will work on our sentiment. For my sentiment, I will be using the simple sentiment stamp and die set combo. Now, I will be using the tiny sentiments from the simple sentiment all occasion stamp set. Now, this is a universal die set that cuts out sentiments from these simple sentiment stamps. Cat Scrappiness has these in a bunch of different occasions, including Valentine's, Halloween, and the latest being the holiday edition. The die cuts out all of these sentiments beautifully. I usually stamp a bunch of these sentiments on a white piece of cardstock using black ink and cut them out using the coordinating die and store all of them together in a tray. That way, I always have my sentiment strips ready to go for my card projects. This is one set that I would definitely recommend all of my crafty friends to have. All you need to buy is one die set that will go with a bunch of different sentiment stamps. You will see that all of these sentiments can be used for so many different occasions. This is a very versatile product that I feel is a must in your crafty stash. Now that our background panel is dry and the sentiment picked out, it is now time to assemble our card front. Now, I wanted to keep this as simple as I could with very little dimension. I decided to add some liquid glue onto this background panel and stick it right onto a top folding A2 size card base. Well, if you notice carefully, I did add a bit of orange to the center of the sun just to give some dimension and depth to it, just like we gave some dimension using various shades of green for our tree line. Once my panel was in place, I went ahead and stuck the sentiment strips. Now I use some foam tape to stick these sentiments. I first have the sending you sunshine and I stuck that using some liquid glue. Liquid glue over foam tape gives you some wiggle room just to make sure that these sentiments are first properly aligned before they finally get fixed onto your card front. I like to use my T-square ruler just to make sure that these sentiments are properly aligned. Here's a look at the finished card. I love how quick and easy this was to create. The layers with different shades of greens, browns, and blues create a beautiful depth to my nature scene. Now I decided to keep my card with just the background and the sentiment strip, but you could pair this with stamped images or die-cut focal points. This is also a card design that would be easily mass-produced and would be perfect for anyone who loves nature. Cat Scrappiness also has the Are We There Yet retro camper craft die, which I think would match perfectly with this background. I paired this card with a matching envelope by creating a single layer of the tree line on the bottom of a white envelope. I love how beautiful this card turned out. All the supplies that I used today in this video will be linked down in the description box. All of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Well, I hope you had fun watching today's video and got inspired. Please do click on the like button if you enjoyed watching the video. That really helps my channel. Thank you for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe and wishing you all a very happy new year.